Wow. Love that intro. Hey, everybody. I'm Mike Steele, Pigs and Cows Gone Wild Competition Barbecue Team, and your host for here for the Barbecue Champs Academy live show. And we got this guy right here, Mr. Lee Hickle, Red Mules Barbecue. We have cleaned up the name some. Lee, how are you
That's
doing,
right.
brother?
I'm doing good. Thank you, sir.
That's good. That's good. Man, we appreciate you being on. Man, we got a big show lined up tonight.
We've got some very heavy hitters here.
Yeah, I saw somebody had posted on my timeline earlier. Man, we got some that's exactly what they posted. We got some heavy hitters tonight. So, yeah, we're going to talk about brisket. Man, the show last week about the ribs, if y'all haven't seen it, golly, that thing had almost 2,000 views. A lot of great questions. We be patient with us. I know there was a lot of times people were asking questions, and we were asking those questions. We just had to get to them. So be patient. Let us get through all the questions that we're going to ask, and if there's something that we missed that y'all want covered, Lee and myself will certainly monitor everything. We'll get y'all in. Meantime, we got a few folks already popping on, so let's give some props here while we're going to give folks a few more minutes. We got Gordon here. Justin, thank you for being here. Nico is here. Thank you for being with us. We got Matt with us this afternoon. Got Evan with us. Mr. John up there in stormy Madison, Wisconsin. Got Darren with us today. Lucky Seven's watching. Got Travis with us as well. Lee was right about my rib injection. Thanks, Lee. There you go. So
You got it.
he was having problems with texture, if I recall. So little changes shows helping. Chris, thank you
hmm
for being with us. Miss Brenda, good to see you. Looked like you was laying out by the pool today. Mr. Steven, thank you for joining us. Had a good call. I think he had a first chicken. I think it was. He had a first
Is that
place.
right?
I think it was a chicken. So, Deanne, thank you for being here. Who else we got? Mark. Let's see, Justin, what we got here? Just got done prepping everyone's favorite meat for World Invitation. You can keep them dang chicken thighs, brother. I hate them stupid things. Great. I need help with my brisket. That's good. Got everybody joining us, man. We got Lucas, man. We even got people from Australia already. So thank you for Lucas for being with us today. Home Grill Advantage, thank you for being here. Bob Zaney, thank you for joining us. Yep, first place chickens, what
hmm
Steven said. Anyway,
Wow.
Lee, let's talk real quick, man. I think you made this little trek up to Memphis, Tennessee. Tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about that. We're going to dive into this brisket when we got a few folks coming in.
you bet. Memphis in May. That's where the real barbecue is. They had the rib slam on the river. I guess it turned into the mud fest. But hey, we were on asphalt at Memphis in May, Liberty Park. I guess there was about 100 and change teams there this weekend. 28
Okay.
in
Yep.
pork shoulder. I don't know how many were in whole hog. 20 something whole hog, the rest in ribs.
Right.
But we had a good weekend. We had a full staff. I cooked with Willingham's World Champion Barbecue, and Paul, the owner of Willingham, he brought in a pretty good stack deck of cooks, and we did what we could. Uh, Jeff, he cooked the turkey on the pit maker, a Magnum I've got, and hit a perfect turkey up
Wow.
there at Memphis in May. And then Hunter, he tied for first place on chicken at the 4-way tie, ended up being fourth overall on the tie.
Right.
But on the pork shoulder, man, we nailed the on-site. We got all the tens from the on-site judges, but they just didn't quite like that flavor. So we ended up being 19th overall on
Right.
the pork shoulder. So we got some things to work on, but at the end of the day, it was a good time. Of course, it rained like it normally would at Memphis,
Of
but the
course.
sun came. The sun came out right when it had to come out, so it made
Yeah.
it for an awesome week to come together and fellowship and see a lot of old time friends we haven't seen in a long time. If you
Right.
ever had a chance, at least if you can't go cook it, man, walk around, hang around, meet some friends, take some pictures, learn some tricks and trades. Right beside us was Tuffy Stone,
Right.
and it's just a blessing to be beside him and pick his brain
Oh, yeah.
on what he can do. So he's a legend of barbecue himself. But all
Absolutely.
in all, it's just that was about a 13-hour drive for me to get up there.
Right.
So that's just the hardest part. And then you work all week and then you tear down and head home on Sunday.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm glad to be home. So I'm anxious,
Yeah.
for the next one. The
Yeah.
next one, the big one is going to be in August in
Right.
Monterrey, Mexico with the SMP Team Mexico. We over 100 teams from South America, and we'll be helping cook for 35,000 people for the festival.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a fun deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to go to
But
Memphis in
what?
May next year. I told Suzette, I said, next year I'm going to go to Memphis in May. Whether you want to go or not, I'm going to go. Even if I'm cooking with somebody, great. If not, just to hang out and just go to all the different places. I got so many of our friends, and Robbie Royal was there. I know. Well, he was at the other one. He was at the Smoke Showdown or Smoke.
Right,
Yeah.
right. The
But,
rib smoke,
yeah,
or
that's
what
it.
it's called.
Whatever they call it. So anyway, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I think I'm definitely going to have to get up there next year. Man, I got to give a shout out. We got to give a shout out to Brad and Brooke. Man, they won grand champion. They had a first place hog. You had Heath Riles. We're going to try to reach out to Heath, see if we can get him on here as well. Man, first place ribs, and then we had Chris Lilly. Man, I mean, you talk about another legend. Had a first place shoulder.
Solid.
I mean, that was awesome. I've got to give props to my boy down in central Louisiana, 60 miles south of Shreveport, Natchitoches, Louisiana, Daryl Walker, Sweetie Barbecue. Man, I tell you what, we've helped Daryl. Really been working with him a lot over the last since last year when we had the Barbecue USA cook-off and kind of put him under my wing a little bit, give him some tips. He's been really coming around. So happy for him and Trish. They're just downright good people. So
Right.
Anyway, well, enough of us talking. We've got a lot of questions. Got about 34,000, as Fred would say. I'm sure a few more stragglers are going to come on here in a minute. So let's bring in the rib gurus. First of all, let's see which is my first on my list.
Are we doing rib or brisket?
I mean brisket. I'm sorry, I said rib. Thank you. That's why I got you as my co-host. Real quick, I want to thank our partners: the Barbecue Store, Gunnar Wilhelm Knives, Dago Barbecue, and Raider Red Meats. Some of the best places to get stuff. I know that Dustin, I don't know if you saw it, but now he's selling meats and stuff. Who is it? The chopping block. I think he's got all the chopping block stuff. They're working together. He's got a freezer full of meats ready to go. So if you're needing competition stuff, we've been referring a lot of folks to Raider Red Meats. Man, you got to go check out the Barbecue Store because he's got them as well. And I know he's going to have that shipping filled out. So that's awesome. All right. Well, without further ado, man, we got to bring in the guy that's probably forgotten more about brisket than you and I'll ever know about. And man, he's so good. He's even got his own dadgum. He's got brisket in the background. I mean, I was like, man, Fred, I need to kick out and let you be the host. Fred,
man,
thank you for joining us.
I got to show y'all what we're talking about, huh?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, Fred, thank you for being with us tonight, brother. Appreciate it. And we got one more that's, man, I mean, you can't go anywhere without saying this guy ain't a brisket killer as well. Mr. Aaron Leslie, the Moneymaker shirt. Hey, Aaron, how you doing, brother?
Doing good, guys. How y'all doing?
Man, I'm doing good. I don't know. I know when we filmed your class, we was talking about how many top 3 finishes you had in brisket. I know it was over 100. So
it's over here, but I'm just curious how Fred got my box in his background. Because when I sent him that photo and I said, "Hey, look at this box. Would you critique this? Like, am I sliced a little off?" And then all of a sudden, now it's on his background. And so that must be why we both walked to the Royal. And I mean, I don't know. He didn't walk both days. I did, but I mean, I don't really know for sure on brisket. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that's my box that I gave. Pretty sure that's my photo.
My goodness!
Know, man. Wow. I mean, I'm pretty sure, man. I mean, we're gonna have to make this part of the shigging show because apparently Fred ain't shigging no more. He's just shigging the pictures and posting them.
I sent my photos. Hey, Fred, check this out. What do you think? And he's like, I like it. And then now it's on his background. I don't know, man.
Man, I took Aaron's picture, sent it to Bill Purvis. He did the filter 101 on it, and that's what you got right there.
That's what you got, man. I mean,
there you go. There you go.
Hey, I'm honored. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
There you go. Well, all I know is thank you two guys for being on. And Lee Hickle's no slouch in brisket. I've cooked one or two and done pretty well. So you've got a lot of talent on here that knows quite a bit about brisket. These two on this bottom row are pretty killers. And so we're going to start getting into some questions. Now, look, let's see if we got any. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Yeah, we got a lot. Okay.
I don't know about pretty killers, but we're good looking killers.
Yeah, we got a lot of sexiness in one screen. So let's see. I hear Aaron's coming up with Warwick, Rhode Island for our first CBA event. That's going to be off. Fred, first of all, man, got to congratulate you from expanding out from Texas, man. You didn't just go a little bit across the state line. You freaking dang near went to another continent, man. So we'll talk a little bit about that if we got some time. But, man, congratulations for pulling that off. You got another one in South Carolina?
South Carolina.
South
Yes,
Carolina.
sir.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. Y'all are branching out. love what y'all are doing, man. Y'all are keeping barbecue real, and I love your scoring system.
Just
I've only
trying to
had a chance to
expand
do
as
a
we
couple.
can, you know.
Doing good with it. All right, so everybody's here about brisket. Got two great champs, myself and Lee Hickle. We're going to definitely try to come up with some questions. Lee's pretty good about bouncing things off of me and y'all and everything else. So, there's a lot of questions I know in brisket. We're going to kind of start with the brisket itself. Thought process going into smaller cook-offs, bigger cook-offs. Do you cook a really good, well-marbled prime, or do you cook a Wagyu brisket? And if you do, primes, I mean, there's a lot of different ones. I think they're all pretty good. Used to, when I cooked prime, I did a lot of Creekstone Farm. They were great briskets back in the day. Wagyu briskets, Aaron, we know which one you're going to cook. Bill or Fred, we're going to find out which ones you cook. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'm going to start, just go around the horn. So first of all, Fred, I'm going to go with you. Smaller cook-offs, say less than 50 teams or less. Are you cooking a Wagyu, or are you going to cook a prime?
Man, I'm sticking to what I always cook. It's really hard for me to change off of what I know is tried and true and has done well.
Right.
There are very, very few instances that I might switch over to a prime.
Okay.
I had a conversation with somebody today about that, and there's particular areas that I just think a prime might suit that area a little better, just because
Yep.
I don't want to say that they don't know what a Wagyu should taste like, but they're almost they maybe never had it, and we've got to cater to those taste judges, right?
Right.
So we gotta give them what they know and what they're used to, and it's maybe not the Wagyu or the prime. Maybe it's more of a traditional brisket, a little less sauce,
Right.
more. And I would say, just south of San Antonio area and then the hill country, Fredericksburg area, I think that's more the case. But man, 99% of the time I'm cooking a Midland meat Wagyu, which
Midland
I know
meat.
that's what Aaron's going to answer to.
Okay.
We're pretty much cooking the same piece of meat. So you got to start off with a good piece of meat to expect good results.
Amen. I believe you there. All right, Aaron, what about you, brother?
I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and I have cooked. I have not cooked a different piece of meat except for Midland Meat Company has multiple types of cattle, right? They have two types. They have an Angus Hereford, and then they have the Angus Hereford Wagyu. So 9 times out of 10, I'm going to cook the Wagyu brisket from Midland Meat Company. But on occasion, we get lucky, and John blesses us with about 15 or 20 head of Angus that he raises, and the marble on those things are outstanding. So when I get lucky and get 2 or 3 of those, I freeze them. I'll trim them up and get them frozen, and then I know that when I go in the North Texas region, okay, say west north, that I'm probably gonna cook that Angus if I have one, just because it is a smaller community, a smaller cook-off, and sometimes that flavor of the brisket may not stand out as much versus that little more of that lower end, cheaper kind of beef flavor. But I think as a cook, you can regulate your flavors on your brisket, and you can treat that piece of meat no matter what type of meat it is, and still get the same flavor that you're trying to accomplish for that top 10 brisket.
Right.
So I think that my Wagyu is just as good, if not better, than the Angus because of the flavor profile in which I have instilled over all the zip codes of the state. I try to, anyways. I try to give it that same flavor, but we all know that a prime or an Angus has a little bit different back end on it that you might not give it to Angus. But I'm going to run the Midland Meat Company Wagyu 9 times out of 10, unless it depends on where I'm going. But if I'm lucky enough to have one of his Angus, because they are phenomenal.
Okay. Good questions. All right, here's Stephen Peacock. He's no doubt he's bought a lot of classes from us. He's a great cook. He's only been cooking 2 or 3 years now, and he's got a good question here. So, what's the minimum size whole packered brisket, like the entire brisket, that you will typically buy? And let's just say you're using Wagyu, because most of y'all do. What are you looking for, Fred? I mean, what size do you like? You like a range of 18 to 20, 20 to 22? What do you like to get?
And I would say that to me, the bigger the better. I like big briskets, but if I had to say like a minimum, which is the question he's asking,
Right.
I wouldn't go any less than 16 pounds. And I'm saying 16 pounds, and it's got to be shaped right, in the packer, in the cryovac, because
Right.
it could be 16 pounds worth of a lot of decal fat, which ain't gonna do you any good, or it can be real thick on one end and real thin on the other end, which is not a good 16 pound brisket. If it's pretty even, pretty all the way through from point to flat, I think a 16 pound you can do some damage with it, right? Smaller than that, it's going to be real hard, especially the way I trim. I want to get those grains straight up and down. It's really hard for you to get that trim on a smaller brisket
Right.
and still have some usable meat for slices.
Okay.
So I'd say 16 pounds is a minimum for me.
Okay. All right, Aaron. What about you, brother?
I don't go for size. I go for marble. So I go for the look of it, and I go depending on what organization I'm cooking. I actually look at the size of the point, and I actually look at the marble of the brisket. So I know I've cooked over 5,000 of John's briskets, and I mean, and that's a number. That's an average number, like per week, per year, times 5, times 7. I mean, it's an average number, right? But the thing about it is I know exactly how his meat cooks, and I know it so well that I can shape that brisket and I can put it towards a straight sided brisket. I can shape it towards a guitar pig. I can do anything, but I don't look for. A lot of guys will call up and say, "Hey, I want one of those big 22, 24 pound, trimmed briskets." You ain't getting that. I don't think
Right.
you're gonna get that anywhere.
Right.
If Fred has seen some trimmed briskets, I mean, like comp trimmed briskets in the 20 pound range, that's amazing. That thing had to be 50, 60 pounds whenever you got done with it.
Right.
So, I mean, before you pull it, when you pull it back, but
Mhm.
I don't necessarily go for, I think I go for marble.
Yep.
I go for the way the grain looks, and I go for the marble of the brisket and how big the point is. Because if I'm going to cook burn ends, I need to have a big point, and I want to make sure I can get that out of there. I don't mind how thick it is because I know for a fact that every brisket that we cook, and Fred can probably say that they're going to swell between a quarter and 3/8 of an inch, no matter what. They're going to go up; they never go out. So when you get done with the day, I'm going to have an inch and a quarter slice, and all I got to have is enough for 6 judges or a couple of rounds. And so I'm not really worried about the thickness of the brisket. Now, if I'm going to the Royal or the Jack or whatever, obviously we want big and bold and we want better. But on an everyday weekend, I will literally go into the meat store and I will pick something off the shelf because I'm not looking for big and bold because a lot of guys are trying to buy those, and I don't cook the ones that the customers are trying to purchase. And I'm not trying to get those big 2-inch flats. I look for the shape of the grain, how it's running. I look for how much marble's in it, and I look for the size of the point. And that's the 3 things I look for. And when you grab a holted one from the side, not the decal side, but the flap side, you're going to get the feel of how thick that might be in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on how you trim it, you can get more out of that brisket or you get less out of that brisket. So it all depends on if you're a good knife sharpener and you can go in there and sharpen that knife a little bit and trim that brisket the way you want it. You can get the maximum potential out of that piece of meat and like a work of art. So I don't go for necessarily the bigger. I go for what I think I need it to be as far as looks and the size of the point.
Okay. Yeah. Good question.
So, Aaron, if you have not very tall slices and it's time to box, will you put more slices in the box to tighten it up a little bit?
Man, I cut my slices a certain thickness due to the how tender my brisket is. I'm going to put 7 to 10 slices in the box, depending if I have burn ends. The other day I put 15 burn ends in a box. I got 6 slices in there, and I pulled the back row of burn ends out because I didn't like the look of the burn ends in the first 3 versus row 4, right? So when I look at that, my slices were about 1 1/8 inch thick, and I cut everything off the bottom of it. So I mean, still had 8. I think 7 slices, and I think I had 12 burn ends in a box. So it wasn't the fact that I go for. Depends on the when you cut your brisket, you're gonna have some point meat on the bottom. You're gonna have some fat on the bottom, and that usually is good or it can hurt you. And we all know this, right? Depending on where you're going, you might want to cut it off, and you might want to leave it on there. You have to kind of know the area that you're going to. So that's going to depend on how many you get in the box. But I go for a thickness I don't go for how many slices I can get in there. So if my brisket's really, really tender, I'm going to get a good 3/8. Hell, I might even go husky. I'm telling you, man, I'm going to give you some chew. So I want to keep it together, but the thickness of my slices depends on just really where I'm cooking and how tender my brisket is.
Okay, that's some good questions. All right, so I've seen a couple questions in here, and look, we're going to kind of progress this. I don't want to just skip around everywhere because there won't be no structure to the show. So Tyler, I know you asked about a sauce and au jus, and I know Carlos, you asked about burn ends. He's done told you he likes 2 rows of burn ends, but we'll kind of go into more depth about that. And so, and then who else? Okay, and Fidel, you asked about best brisket sauces. So let's kind of save those. If I don't get those, guys, ask me toward the end because we're going to progress. We're just kind of taking it like a cook. Okay, we know about the brisket. We're talking about trim. We're going to go into when they inject it, when they like to do it, when they like to put rubs on. And then we'll get into maybe a little bit of the cooking techniques. And then we'll get into the sauce and the au jus and how they're putting them in the boxes and stuff like that. So that's kind of how we're going to do it. So any of you three, Tyler, Fidel, Carlos, ask these questions again toward the end of the show in case if I forget. But if I start bouncing around everywhere, we're not going to have a very good show, and I want to try to keep some good structure to it. So and so far we've got a lot of good stuff. This is what they're looking for in brisket. This is how they like to go about doing it. They've already kind of told you how they go about putting them in the box. So we've kind of jumped a little bit ahead there. That's fine. He's telling you, here's what I'm looking for when I buy the brisket, because when I buy the brisket, this is how I'm going to go about doing it. So anyway, so I think somebody had just asked a question about the grain of the meat, leaving point on meat or run a straight flat. So, okay, here's a good question since we're talking, this is more in the trimming part. Do you leave a little bit of that point meat under it or do you just run a straight flat? Fred, roll with you, brother.
I like to leave a little bit of the point meat on, personally. I think it just keeps the flat a little more moist. And depending on where I'm cooking or what sanctioning body I'm cooking, I'll either take that little bit of point meat off or leave it on. So I do like to leave some on there. I want to get enough of it off of there to where I have a point for burn ends.
Okay.
But I do like to leave a little bit on there personally.
Okay, Aaron.
I don't trim my brisket for a point. So every now and then I will use the point from my brisket, but I try to leave as much protection on that brisket as possible. So I'm going to have a good 1/2 inch thick of point on the bottom with that little fat layer.
Okay.
I'm blessed, and Fred can do the same thing. Anyone who orders from Midland Meat Company, you can order a point.
Right.
They have them. They separate them.
Right.
And so sometimes if I'm going, the other day I cooked one that was 7 pounds. I mean, it was a 7 pound. I got 21 burn ends out of it, and I only chose to put 12 in the box. But right. I mean, the thing is that you get lucky because when you have a meat purveyor that knows what they're doing, right. and they can do things, they can get you a certain cut. Fred, for instance, Fred is trimming at the meat shop all the time. If he really wanted to, he could do that, and he could have that available, right? And that would be something some guys would probably buy. Right. And I'm lucky with that with Midland Meat Company. I can go buy a point and keep my brisket whole and use the best of both worlds and not have to go that far with it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're going to kind of get into a couple other questions. Just trying to see, Fairdale. Look at there, Daryl. Sweetie, what's up, brother? Glad to have you here, man. We was talking about you just a minute ago. Congratulations, sweetie. All right, so we've pretty much well talked about what you're looking for in the brisket. Leave a little point meat under it. Let's kind of go in now and talk about injections, because I know that's the next thing. Once we get them trimmed, first thing all of us are gonna do. Let's face it, it's competition barbecue. You better be going in. You better be trimming it. So let's talk about injections. Most everybody's going to do them in the afternoon, probably anywhere between 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Is that kind of y'all's time range for like a CBA, an Outlaw, a BCA, all the Texas cooks? I mean, obviously it's a little bit different. Maybe for the Royal, KCBS, not a whole lot of difference in time. Where does your timeline in there, Fred, that you kind of like to do your brisket injection?
Man, I've always been one to do it kind of late.
Okay.
I'm in the 9 to 10 p.m. range.
9 to 10. Okay.
Man, if I do it a little earlier or a little later, really don't bother me none.
Okay.
But typically the way I do things when I get to a contest, and you go have dinner, come back, get everything done. It kind of falls in that range. So that's typically my time frame.
Okay, Aaron, what about you, brother?
I'm pretty much. I mean, everybody wants to talk and hang out and walk around and discuss things with people. So I'm a 6 to 10 guy. As long as
Okay.
I get it, anytime after 6 p.m., I'd like to have it done by 9.
Okay.
And then in the Cambro. So I'm kind of that 6 to 9 p.m. kind of range, and that's where I kind of that's my comfort zone.
All right, Burley's got
And
a
I'm
question.
getting old. I'm getting old.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go to bed by 10, 11 o'clock. Fred's like he's a young pup.
Yeah, he's good at getting pictures too, and being able the only one to post a background of a brisket. So here's another good question, and I see a lot of different things on this. So, do y'all inject and then season right after, or do you let it sit overnight and put your injection or your rubs on, say, an hour before they go on the smoker? Fred?
Well, there's going to be a lot of questions, and let me tell you, there's no right answers and no wrong answers to any of this.
That's true.
It's whatever works for you, whatever gets you the results. So, and me leading up to that is I'm going to tell you, I used to season all the time. As soon as I inject it, throw it in the camera, forget about it, put it on the pit in the morning, and I'm done. But I've done it the other way too, to where I inject it, just leave all the juice in the pan, throw it in the Cambro, and then season it in the morning when I'm, 15 minutes before I put it on. So is one right? Is it one wrong? I've had results with both. I've won with both, and I've lost with both.
Yeah.
So
I'll say this. Let me throw my hat in the ring here. So one time, I had never done it before. I was at a competition. I think I was in Minden, and I was trying new rubs. And I was like, okay, let me try something different. I injected it, patted it dry. I put my rub on, stuck it in the Cambro. I think I had a 5th place brisket. It was a brand new recipe, everything. I go to the next competition. I do the exact same thing, same rubs, everything. I put them on the morning of, and I had a 6th place brisket. So it was absolutely no different. The consistency, I couldn't tell any difference. I think it doesn't. I don't know if it matters. And I only did it twice. I only did it one time with the rubs on at night. I haven't ever done it. I just put my rubs on right before they go on the smoker. So
I think it might matter if your rubs are maybe really salty.
Yeah.
That can do something to the brisket if it's sitting there for a long, long time.
Right.
And other than that, I don't think there's much to it. To be honest with
Okay.
you.
Aaron, what about you, brother? You put them on the night before? Or?
Yeah, I've done it. I've done it both ways, but I'll be honest. I mean, sometimes the guy might oversleep, so it's already ready to go. I mean, you might be snoozing. We all know that. We all know that we wake up, especially us guys who wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and hit the floor running. Right? I mean, you hit the floor running, so you wake up and say it's 4:30, and you just like 30 more minutes, and you get the best sleep. Right between 4 and say 6:30 in the morning, so you might wake up just a little bit early, and it's ready to go. So I have done it both ways, but I'll be honest with you, I'm one of those guys that would just rather just have it ready to go and just throw it on the pit, and that's what I do. So I'm gonna do mine at nighttime, have it ready to rock and roll.
All right, so just real quick, you're talking about 6, 7 o'clock going on. Lee Hickle, what time do you have your brisket in the Cambro resting?
After barbecue church at 6:30, I wrap 8 o'clock. Between 8 and 8:30, the brisket's in the Cambro.
There you go, guys. Lee Hickle, 8 o'clock. His brisket's in the Cambro rested.
But I will say that if you really want to know, man, barbecuechampsacademy.com is right there. Barbecuechamps.com. You can go watch the whole thing, and it'll tell you exactly what we do, and
that's
there's
it.
no questions to be asked.
100%. It'll get you paid too. If you don't believe me, I got about 10 people on here
Walking last and getting paid.
Yeah, that's it. Walking last and getting paid. Carlos, Steven. I mean, there's a bunch of them on here that can tell you the same. Okay,
my first place brisket calls aren't as often as they used to be. For some strange reason, the last year I have been handed to me a little bit more.
I'm sorry. It's getting tough for all of us. So
it is.
All right, so here's a really good one. And y'all don't have to just share as much information on this as you want. What's a good injection? I mean, do you like LC? LC's good. Butcher's good. Aaron, I know you've got some great product out there. Man, that's the 3 that just come to the top of the list. Butcher, Cosmos. Cosmos got some great stuff as well. Is any of those stand out to you, Fred?
Man, I think I've tried them all, and they all work great. My tried and true has always been Butcher's. That's kind of what I cut my teeth on, and I got off of it for a while because I felt that it had changed a little bit. Back on it, and still getting results with it. So that's my tried and true is Butcher's Prime.
Okay, Aaron. Let's talk about yours.
I mean, I've used Calcutta now since it first came out. I mean, well, before it came out, I was making the injection on the stove, and had to figure out how to put it in a powder. And that was kind of tough, but the Calcutta has been my go-to since probably 17. And I broke out using. I mean, honestly, when I first started cooking, it was Cosmos.
Yeah.
When I first learned about that, I tried Cosmo, I tried Ritter's, I tried Butchers. Talk Texan. I tried all kinds of stuff because all these guys were using it. I just tried different ones. But since 17, I made that recipe on the stove. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of liquid, a little bit. I mean, we just make it and then trying to make that into a powdered form. But I've been using Calcutta since 17, and I haven't looked back and I haven't used anything since.
Okay. All right. That's interesting stuff. That's what we got. All right, let's talk real quick. We're fixing to start getting into the cooking part, so I'll throw this one in. Preferred wood. Fred, what's your preferred wood?
Pecan, gourmet wood pecan.
Gourmet.
After it's wrapped, man, anything but pine. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
True.
Once it's wrapped, I'm with you there.
Yeah, the cheapest stuff I can get my hands on.
Yeah. What about you, Aaron? What do you like?
Man, I'm pecan all the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Pecan
Lee,
all
what do
the
you
way,
got,
so.
buddy? What do you like?
Yeah, pecan and hickory. Mostly
Okay.
pecan.
And let's talk about your injection real quick, Lee. What do you like for injection?
Man, Aaron's on point there. I've done Ritter's, I've done Talk Texan, Cosmo, Butcher's. So I like Cosmo and Butcher's.
Cosmo and Butcher.
Kind of my go-to.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Do you find that a more pale-colored brisket lacks in flavor even when it's well marbled?
What about by pale? Is it pale and
Pale when it's raw? Is that?
Yeah. What are you talking
or
about,
pale
Jason?
as a
Maybe
slice?
so.
Because and you guys have seen this. When you slice a brisket, you get a really white slice,
Yeah.
like a really pale beige slice, and you get a really kind of a nice dark brown kind of slice too, right? So
Right.
every brisket is different. So I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah. Kind of.
I think maybe he's asking
Raw.
when it's raw.
Raw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get a more pale-colored brisket lacks in flavor even when it's well marbled? So
Yeah.
he's probably talking about when it's raw.
Jason, look up meat pH. pH scales, and it'll get it's a whole deep dive into meat science.
Yep.
But a lot of it depends on the stress level of when the cow was killed,
Right.
and it depends on the color of the meat. So
Yeah.
look into meat pHs and acidic and neutral and all that good stuff. There's a lot of information on the web for it.
Yep. It is. Let's see, Brian. The question was for turn in. Did they point meat on or off? Yeah, we already talked about that. He said certain areas, Brian. Come on now, they've already uncovered that. Certain areas they're going to cut it off. Certain areas they're going to leave it on. They both said that. So it depends on where they're at. Fred said will depend on the organization.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. Are sweet spices used mostly for burn-ins? Yeah. Let's go ahead and answer that one real quick.
I season my brisket and my burn-ins the same way.
Okay.
I do too. Same thing.
Same. All right. Let's see. How much phosphates does it depend on what kind of brisket you're cooking, or anything, or is everything the same? Okay, that's kind of a good question. That kind of still ties in maybe with the injection part of it. There's a lot of people that load these things up with phosphates. There's some people. I use very, very little phosphates on my briskets. I don't use a lot. Fred, what's your thoughts on phosphates?
I gotta giggle. I apologize.
Aaron's telling himself a joke over there.
Yeah.
Teaspoon. TSP. 1 teaspoon.
He's chasing butterflies.
No, I mean I think maybe not any, but a lot of the injections that are out there already have phosphates in them.
Right.
So if you add too much, it could be too much, right?
Right.
So I typically just go with whatever's in the injection. On brisket, that's just what I do.
Okay. Aaron?
As a guy who has a phosphate that's very, very good, I can shave 2 to 3 degrees off of your tenderness scale with that phosphate. And you just got to know how much to use, right? So
Right.
a phosphate, you can use too much and become very mushy, depending on the protein that you're running. Now, that's the difference, is the protein that you're running.
Right.
At the same time, you can use no phosphate and have good results as well, because you have a very good brisket or a very well marbled brisket. I'm one of those guys that likes to push the envelope. I want to know how much can I put in there before it falls apart and turns to chopped beef in without a slice. So I will do some things that do it. So I like a little more phosphate in my injection. I have a tablespoon per quarter cup. So that's what I have in mind. I'm telling you what you got. So if you add 2 or 3 tablespoons, you might be too much. You add 1 tablespoon, you might be just a little under. It all depends on your brisket. It all depends on what you're cooking. You can't say that you went to Walmart and bought a nice brisket out of the case and you don't need any phosphates for that, because I'm going to tell you, you're lying.
Right.
You gotta. I mean, there's no way that piece of meat will ever be tender.
Right.
So I mean, that's the kind of thing. Is that phosphates are a very good way to make something tender, but it's also a great way to make something very wrong and do something very wrong.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Here's a good question for your injection. We've talked about injection. Do you use a broth? Do you use water? Do you use a consomme? Fred, what do you do you use it mix or both? I know some people use a little bit of both. Some people use a broth and a water. Just depends.
Yeah. Broth and water. I use no consomme in my brisket. So
okay. Fred, Aaron.
Once again, barbecuechamps.com will tell you all you want to know.
He's not giving that secret away. I promise you.
If I told you that I use a little bit of everything that you just mentioned, you'd be like, "Yeah, he's lying."
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it at that. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I've been really trying to work with Daryl here. Do y'all have a problem using rosemary on your meats? I have told this guy 1,000 times this is not Italian cooking. It's barbecue. So, any of y'all throw some rosemary on your meats?
I saw First Place Chicken use rosemary at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, but they popped it first.
Okay, that's
anyway,
chicken.
They use rosemary. I know, but
let's talk about brisket and ribs. Any rosemary on brisket and ribs?
Your secret ingredient, Fred. Come on, they're
waiting
to hear it.
Yeah.
Fred, they're waiting to hear it. Just tell them your secret ingredient. Let's just move on. Come on,
it's time.
Who is she?
Who is Oh goodness gracious, that's awesome.
I don't know her, so I don't use her.
We're not using her. Yeah, you don't know who she is. You don't know who she is. So, does weather play a part in your process? It doesn't in mine, not so much. Maybe the cooking time.
It may play a part in the finishing process, but it may not play a part in the cooking process.
Right, exactly. All right, let's see. Look at that, Red. They are on point. No pun intended. Yeah. Photoshop, baby, Photoshop. He's got Aaron stuff. He's got Aaron stuff, and on top of that, So anyway, let's see. Your Barbecue Champ Academy helped me out for sure. Yep, there you go. There's you an alumni right there. Matter of fact, he's part of our pro team. Him and Stephen Peacock are part of Barbecue Champ Academy's pro team. We did pick out a few guys that have always given us shout outs, always doing things for us. I reached out to 3 cooks. I reached out to Carlos. I reached out to Stephen. I reached out to James Dotson. And these guys are on Barbecue Champ Academy's alumni pro staff. It's something that we're just trying to do some extra stuff for them because they're always giving us shout outs and doing things. Man, these guys have been killing it. That's for sure.
I will say that congratulations to Stephen on that First Place Chicken, because we talked in Fort Worth. And when he got done, he says, "Hey, you might be onto something." Sends me a First Place trophy. I'm like, might be. Who knows?
Yeah.
Good go.
There you go.
I'm proud of it.
It's always good having those chicken talks, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It's
Let's
always at
see.
awards, right? It's like when you're sitting there next to each other at awards, and everybody's walking, you're not. You're like, how am I doing? Well, I don't really know, man, but I got something out there you want to try. It's no big deal, man. I'm just trying. You just go back and forth. And all of a sudden, they call your number. You're like, I'll see you in a minute.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, goodness gracious. All right. So let's see. Do y'all like a really beefy injection or more well balanced? Okay, let's kind of go that. We're going to kind of get off this because we've been kind of nailing this injection stuff, but we'll answer this question, kind of get on through the process because we're already at 7:40. I don't want to certainly keep people here forever. So, all right. So you like more of a beefy injection or you just like one that's a balance where it's kind of just a good flavor?
Fred can answer first.
All right, Fred.
Man, I think all my stuff is just well balanced. I mean, you do want some beef in there, right? Obviously. Um, but I think once you inject it, it just kind of loses a little bit of its potency, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And it's just a well balanced, just good tasting injection. You don't want it. I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't want to overpower the natural taste of the meat itself.
Meat. Okay. All right, Aaron.
I love his answer. Ditto.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Fred, do you find less injection is actually maybe better for a certain kind of the brisket to use from Creekstone? Creekstone or Midland or Snake River. Do you think the amount of injection differs?
So if anybody's ever taken my class, I don't know what other guys do, honestly. Like I really don't know how much fluid or liquid they're putting into it. But if anybody's ever taken my class, I'm sticking 28 to 32 ounces of liquid in a brisket. So it's not real strong. So that's why I can put a lot of it. It's not real dark colored either. So you don't get any staining and anything like that. So it's a little more of a smooth injection. So I don't know what anybody else out there is doing. I don't change whether I'm cooking a prime or Wagyu.
Right.
It's the same process.
Same process. Okay. All right. Got some great questions. All right. So we've got everything. We've seen what we're doing. We've got the injection down. Got everything on the brisket itself. Coming into the cooking process, I mean, we've already talked about pecan. I think everybody knows how to cook a good brisket. I'm not going to get into the cooking process because there's just so much. Cooking brisket on a pellet cooker or an offset, I mean, I don't know. Is cooking brisket on a pellet grill need to be different than cooking on an offset? Man, I think if it's just got good rubs injection, you're going to have to change up some stuff. Aaron, I'm going to let you go in and answer that.
You can't cook a brisket on a pellet grill the same as you do as an offset smoker.
Right.
It doesn't work. Okay. Yeah. It doesn't work because it's a bottom heat. It's right there 3 inches from it. It doesn't work the same. So you have to change that up just a little bit, right? But that's a whole nother day and a whole nother class and a whole another episode, right? But I mean, me and Fred cook on Jambos.
Right.
100%. Every now and then, Fred will whip out 3 drums. The next day, he'll kick your ass still. Doesn't matter.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we still cook on Jambos and we cook on offset smokers. And so that's a whole different process of ambient heat versus direct heat. So it's like, you can't compare the two together.
Right.
But it's a different process. In my opinion, it is. And I would tell somebody the same thing in person or online. So it wouldn't matter.
Right. So let's talk about hot and fast, low and slow. I mean, that's a question that comes up a lot.
Depends on if you wake up late.
Yeah, that's for sure. Fred, where do you like to run your brisket at, man?
Man, I'm a 300 guy. So I'm running 300 start to finish. I know Jason White asked the question.
Yeah.
What temperature do you like to start your brisket at? And
yeah.
Man, I'm running 300 the whole way. So I know there's guys who like to, they say it blows up at 400, whatever. Put it on the top shelf. I've tried it. It's just too much work. I have to be sitting there babysitting that thing, flipping that thing, turning it. That's just not me. I mean, I've had good results just running 300 the whole way, and that's the way I'm going to keep it.
Okay. All right. Time to time, my brisket dries out. Any tips, spritz to keep moist? I mean, sometimes you can get them the texture can get a little funky on the top. You just kind of
more injection.
So, Aaron, what'd you say?
More injection. You're spritzing your brisket is not going to keep it from drying out. It's the injection on the inside. It's the marble on your meat. It's the type of meat you're cooking. You can't go buy a $30 cheap choice brisket expect it to be juicy, and by the time
Right.
you slice it the fourth slice, it's going to ooze juices. It's not going to do that.
Yeah, I guess it depends what type of drying out he's talking about. Is it dry? Is it a dry finish, like when you try it to taste it, or does it just look dry on the outside, like a crusty dryness? But yeah, I'm with Aaron. I mean, if it's drying out, one, you either cooked it way too long and dried it out, took all the moisture out of it, or two, you just didn't have enough marbling and enough phosphates in there to hold the moisture.
To hold it in there.
100%.
Yep. Yes, I switched the tones to outlaw and at night and day difference on flavor and texture. Let's see, down heaven try taking Aaron Leslie's class on barbecue champs. Yeah, he'll definitely show you how he does it. That's for finish. She's talking
So
about
I'm assuming you guys do spritz during your cooking process, though, so you do keep the outer of the meat moist.
That's correct. Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. Got some great questions.
I do. Fred opens the lid. He looks at it. He goes, and it's moist. So I mean, there's the brisket king. There's a brisket chunk. I'm the brisket chunk. Brisket king. He just looks at it. He goes, wiggles his fingers a little bit, maybe tickles his nose, and then boom, that's it.
That's it.
Right.
And I just wave my hand over it, and it's good.
Yeah, that's funny. That is funny. All right, so we've kind of covered quite a bit of stuff. I mean, we've really got into the injections, what you do it, how you go about doing it when you're putting your rub zone, stuff like that. Keep it spritz, keep it moist while it's cooking. You don't want it just to completely dry out. I mean, it'd be a freaking turd if you ain't careful. We got to keep a little bit of moisture on it because it's a long cook. And once you get all, go ahead, Lee. Do you have something?
No.
Okay. So that's just kind of typical stuff most people is going to do. A little water, a little spray, whatever you want to put on it. Just keep it moist. And then once you wrap it, I'm assuming, are you guys adding a little injection into your wrap? Somebody asked, are you a little butter in your wrap? Do you think any of that makes a difference? I've never put butter in my wrap. Never have. So injection, do you have some leftover injection that you do? Or do you just use some beef broth? Fred, we'll go with you on that.
I've got a little flavoring and with some beef broth in there.
Okay.
So yeah, I've got a little mixture that I get together and pour it in. I wrap in a pan.
Right. Okay. What about you, Aaron?
So, Fred Robles' class, y'all message me, $2,000 for all the notes. We're in good shape. It's no big deal. I've got those from back in, when we did that class at Eddie still, like the 18, 19, something like that, Fred? I mean, no, I say barbecuechance.com. You can have everything you want. I'm going to plug the shit out of this because all these questions can be answered and fully served on barbecuechance.com/Aaron Leslie. But
Aaron Leslie.
I tell you what, man, I tell you the amount of stuff that you can put in a wrap for a brisket is beyond me. The things that I have heard, and I'm sure Fred and Lee and yourself might have heard these things, but simple is better.
Yeah.
But man, it just needs to taste like brisket, guys. Just let it taste like brisket. That's all it's got to taste like.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. Water pan? No, these guys cook on Jambos. They're not throwing water pans in.
Well, I got a water pan in my original gear pit.
Right.
So I do have a water pan in there, but I don't use a water pan in my 30. I have a 30-inch.
Right.
And that's a little bit different than a 28 or a 26.
Okay. All right. So let's kind of get in now to some of the finishing parts. Here's a couple questions. And Ray Barker, Little Gringo, she asked this question. I think it's slice your brisket with an electric knife, or do you use a 12-inch, 10 or 12-inch slicer? What do you go with, Fred?
I use a slicer.
So you're obviously not watching Rio Valley Meats page because he shows this every day.
He's the only one. Every day. I'm seeing that damn slicer. Like, man, give me my damn electric knife. I'm getting that damn thing cut through that brisket. So,
man, it brings it.
RioValleyMeats.com. Watch him. Show his page. He will show you how to sharpen the knife, and then he will show you how to slice that brisket to perfection.
It brings a smile to my face knowing that you guys are watching my Instagram.
Hey. That's it. We are.
Man.
We're tagging it.
And the first time I ever walked up, it was NOLA, right? And Fred wins this thing, and J.D. Henley reserves it. And I walked up, I said, Fred, we got to talk, man. I want a class. He's like, all right, we can do it. I said, adios. I'm going back to fucking Texas. That was it. I drove my 18 hours, went on back there. No, it was like 17, but still. Fred has kept the same type of stuff going on. I use an electric knife. I use a Piranha. I use the Piranha, the blue and white one, the saltwater one from, I don't know where you can get it. Academy sometimes has them, but I like it. It leaves no knife marks whatsoever.
Yeah.
I buy a different blade for it. I buy a longer blade. So I do like that. That's me. And so that's my preference.
Yep. I'm electric knife. Lee, what about you, brother?
Electric knife.
Yeah. I like my electric.
But
knife.
I have trusty in the drawer ready to go in case there's no power.
Yeah.
I used to be electric knife. I just I went to I went to a contest where electric knives weren't allowed. You couldn't use anything electric. King of the Smoker in California.
Okay.
And so you couldn't use any electric. So I said, man, I better start practicing with this darn slicer. So
but to cook that brisket that high, and Fred can actually cut that brisket to perfection using the slicer and it not fall apart. I mean, that's just amazing right there all by itself.
But there's a thing about this, and Fred, if you take a class, you will find out really quickly what everybody goes tenderness-wise. But if you can slice a brisket with a knife, you cannot take that brisket as far as you would with an electric knife. So it allows a texture change to hit a certain point. So there is a difference between using a knife and an electric slicer. And that knife may give you the best. And Fred has the trophies to prove it. You know, he has the trophies to prove how good a brisket needs to really be in order to slice it versus electric knife.
Yeah.
So I will put that out there that you have to hit a certain tenderness and you have to be on point for that knife to go through what it does and at the same time collect those trophies. So I hats off to him because I just don't use one.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, one, it's got to be stupid sharp, and two, you're right, the way you cook it, because it's gonna make a difference when you slice.
Let me ask one question. What's your favorite tool to check for tenderness?
Me?
Anybody, doesn't matter. There's 4 of us on this screen, and there's people out there. I'm going to ask a question because I know there's 2 things out there everybody uses, and there's one that somebody doesn't.
Yeah. I use the thermo pen just to probe it.
I'm kind of the same way. Thermopin and then toothpick.
Yeah.
Nobody would ever tell you that, but that guy right there. He's the only man I ever met that used a toothpick to check for tenderness.
Yeah.
And that's why that guy can use a regular slicer to slice his brisket. I'm just saying. I learned that one day, and I was like, huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's been plenty of times I asked my neighbors for toothpicks, and they're probably wondering what the heck they're for. But that's what they're for.
So I have a certain set of toothpicks in my trailer just for tenderness, because if you buy the cheap ones, you'll break them off in there and you can't find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's true. It's happened. Yeah. I'm just telling you.
Fred's laughing. He may have his story on that. We're gonna leave it alone. All right, so here's a good question. Do you prefer the turn-in slices closer to the point side or the flat side, the middle, or the leaner end?
I prefer the slices which I think are the best.
That's a great answer. Yeah, because sometimes I have had them even 4 slices in. Man, they're freaking money right there. You know, it's a good thick flat. It's juicy. It's tender. And then sometimes, man, I may have to go 6 or 7, 5 or 6 in and get to them where I am more toward that point meat. So, yeah, just whichever one's the best.
It's all about the feel. It's all about the feel and all about where you're at. You know, I mean, and you just got to know what you want to put in the box.
Yeah.
You can't turn the same thing in every week and expect the same result.
That's right. That's right. What about you, Lee? Where do you like to get yours from?
Fred's kind of pretty right on that. You know, one day it may be the second or third slice. It may be the seventh or eighth slice down. But I typically start from the point end and work my way back.
Okay.
So I more or less the middle.
Okay. All right. Here's a good question. Bo Daniels brings this up. Good question right here. Do you change up anything from cooking in Texas to say if you're going somewhere out of state, Kansas City, Arizona, New Mexico, stuff like that? Do you kind of run your same profile, Fred, or do you tweak it up a little bit?
Man, dance with the girl who got you there, right? You know,
That's
the thing about changing stuff. If you go anywhere, really, is if you don't do well, you're going to be second guessing yourself the whole time.
Yep.
Man, I should have just ran what I normally run.
Yep. Corey Mike.
Man, if your stuff is good here, it's good in Canada. It's good in wherever you go. It's gonna be good.
That's it.
As long as you're not too much of anything, you'll be fine. So no, I don't change. I mean, I might change a little bit on my tenderness, but not on my flavors or processes or anything like that.
Right. Okay. All right. What about you, Aaron? You kind of run the same stuff?
Flavor profile outside of Texas is the same. It's all about a tenderness game. It's all about KCBS versus Texas barbecue. So you might drop a little bit, but I keep the same. Like this weekend, I mean not this weekend, but this year at the Royal in 23. Everybody's like, "Hey, you change anything?" I said, "I'm running the same thing. I'm running the same profile I run in Texas. It's the same profile I run here. I just got to change the tenderness. You got to hit your tenderness marks. If you don't hit your tenderness, you're not going to get anywhere. If it's too mushy, if it's too tight, you got to find that run, but you got to hit that tenderness that you're not used to running. You got to back it off a few degrees. Texas cooks can do that. It's hard for the KCBS cooks to go over versus under, right? So it's all about tenderness when I go out of the state. It's the same recipe no matter where I go.
Okay, there you go. Dance with what got you there. That's for sure. Speaking of tenderness, do any of you ever do something to help with tenderness, such as Moo Glue, Moo Magic, marinade, P&L marinade, Wicked Pig? I think we've all kind of just do.
I think that's a steak, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more or less. Well, there's
run
some people
phosphates. If you want tender brisket, run a phosphate.
Put the phosphates in it. Yeah.
Jacked is a good one. I'm just saying. I'm just plugging it. I mean, Jacked is a good phosphate.
It's a pretty good one. That's for sure.
We're gonna jack this brisket up.
Let's see. When they quit falling apart, start there. That's a good answer right there. Fred Rose.
I will tell you this comment, and Chris Davis told me this about 4 years ago. He said, when you start slicing. And that brisket, I go, like Lee said, I go from the point. I start on the point side, and I work my way right. I'll go left to right. But when that brisket slice, they'll fold to the left every time. They'll fold to the left every time. As you're cutting on the right side, they'll fold to the left. And Chris Davis told me this years ago. When he cuts it, and that first slice it goes left, I stop. I don't cut no more. She's out. And then I pick and choose what I have from those 9, 10, 11 slices. That's me. That's what I do. And it was a good advice, and I've stuck with that rule ever since. So thanks, Chris Davis.
Yeah.
You're slicing point to flat?
I'm slicing point to flat. I start 3 inches in. I slice point to flat.
You're doing it backwards.
Yeah, you're doing it back
you're not backwards. I think it's because Valley guys versus the rest of Texas. I think you guys are looking in a mirror when you slice. So you think you're automatically backwards.
Man, I'll tell you that when I flush the toilet here and I flush it in Midland, Texas, it flushes the same way, bro.
That's right. That's it. I slice. I'm with you, Fred. I start at the flat and I go to the point. And
I'm a left to right guy. I started that when I first started cooking at 16, not competitively all the time, and I've been left to right ever since. And that's where I go with, man. That's how I am.
Well, I honestly wish I was like that, but I'm not. I'm opposite, and I wish I was like that, just because of the way I box stuff. Right, it would make things easier for me. But I'm the opposite way.
Yeah, I am too.
Because when I put mine in there, when I get done with my right side of my flat, and I move it out of the way, that goes first, and that's what goes in the box. You know what I mean? So you're drawing down.
I know exactly what you mean.
But I mean, I'm just a left to right guy. I'm sorry. I'm a book. You read left to right. I slice left to right.
Lee,
if you Valley boys want to be different, y'all just be different.
I do a lot of things backwards.
You can always move your flat to your left and then cut left to right. That way you're still cutting the front too.
No. In the restaurant, it's left to right here too. So I'm sorry.
To me, my flat always has to be to my right hand. My point always has to be to my left hand. Always.
You're outnumbered. Three to one.
Slicing backwards.
3 to 1.
But then again, I do a lot of things backwards. I fish backwards. I reel with my right hand. Most guys reel in with their left hand.
Really?
Right?
I'm ambidextrous. I reel with my right. I skated with on the left side of the board. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, I don't know, dude. We're the same. I think you just figured out you're just backwards.
Yeah.
There you go.
It works.
Wow. Okay, we had some questions about saucing. And I don't know. I told them to pop the questions back in, so let's see if any of them did. Left,
There was
left.
Tyler, Carlos, and Fidel. Or
Yeah. So I think one of them. Let's see, left or right for Daryl. Daryl, you're back afterwards too, brother. I got to have a talk with you again. Let's see. I got that pro tip from Aaron Leslie, cutting left or right, and I'll do that now. All right, another back password 20. We'll straighten y'all out. My slice like this would be all jacked up if I switched left or right. Yeah, keep what you're doing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about sauce. I think one of the questions is, are you just using straight au jus? You adding a little sauce to the au jus? Man, I think that's such a wide open area. It depends on where you're cooking. If
Mike,
it's
put the link up there. I'm tired of saying it, man.
Aaron Leslie's class, he's got it. So I don't think the guys are going to want to exactly give away how they're finishing off their brisket on something like that.
I'll tell you right now. But I'm gonna
All
let
right,
Fred
go
go
ahead.
first because I want to hear Fred's comment. Fred, I like going behind Fred. That's what I usually walk is behind Fred anyway,
Yeah.
so it's kind of natural.
That's it. All right.
Wow.
Sauce
Wow.
brisket or
I'm
au
just saying. Fred. Every time I go, he's always right there in front of me.
Yeah.
Oh man.
All right.
It's terrible.
Sauce briskets or au jus briskets? I'm just an au jus guy. I think I want the natural flavor. I don't need it. I'll put a little glaze on top. I'll hard set it. It's very, very little, and I'll just get some au jus on it.
Can you see any sauce on that picture behind me?
I sure don't.
No.
There you go.
There you go.
Same way.
Man, as far as sauce in a slice, it depends. But sauce in a brisket, I'm a Brandon oil guy. I like Brandon oil. It does what I want it to do, and it has the right amount of everything to fit the old school, to fit that old school crowd that's wearing cowboy hats going into the rodeo arena. And then you can put extra layers. If you're going south, they want a little sweeter. So, I mean, I can say this: when we go to a competition, I wait because if I walk, I know Fred's coming up there, man. I know he's coming, and I'm like, gosh, dang, he's got it. And if Fred hasn't walked it and I haven't walked it, I'm like, oh, we're running out of real estate. This guy's going to get me. I'm gonna be like 11th. Always going to be 11th. It doesn't matter where you're at. So,
yeah.
But I mean, it's. I think we all have a similar brisket. And be honest with you, I think Texas guys have a similar brisket. It's just a matter of what that last little bit stands out versus doesn't stand out.
Right.
So. But I mean, just keep it natural, man. Make it taste like brisket. Don't get overcrowded.
Yep.
Just a little bit of flavor. It's all you got to have, and you'll get there. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Ray, I see you just asked the question. It's just a little brisket, a little sauce on top. Drag it off, real thin on top, and cook it on. And then just use your au jus for your slices. That's what we're all doing. Like Fred said, look at the box back there. You don't see no sauce on top of that brisket. So it's just au jus. And that Brandon oil is fire. Yeah, it's good stuff, and it's real thin. It goes on real thin. It runs off, and it just cooks and sets up real good. So, man, we've got some great questions today. I think I've got most everybody's stuff answered. A lot of the stuff we've kind of already covered. If I kind of skipped over you, what are you saucing the box? Yeah, what are you saucing the box slices with? They're not saucing this box, their slices. They're just putting a little bit on top. Man, there's so many different good sauces you can put on top. Aaron just told you he's using his Brandon iron. I know that. I seen it. Man, there's so many. Blues Hog, Smoky Mountain. I know a ton of people are using that on their briskets. It's good. It's a light coat. People, it's a brisket, man. It's not a freaking deadgum rib where you got, half a gallon of deadgum sauce poured on top of it. So,
if you were to glaze your brisket, how long do you let it set on the pit to set the glaze? Until it's tacky? Until it's tacky? Hard, dry? Until it's set?
I'm going to have to go film a barbecue champs class to give all these answers out.
There we go. Now we heard it here first, folks. Aaron, you done sold 6 classes, Aaron. So just keep plugging them, Aaron. Let me see. You got the chinga. You got the chinga meter going there, and I don't know how many classes you've done. So
let me just say this: if you're a guy who likes to use a brush to sauce, and when you sauce it and you pull the rub off, you didn't wait long enough.
There you go.
I think that's a good. It's like people say, well, when is it done? probe tender. What is probe tender? Well, everybody has a different, different way of shaking. Like, is it a glass of water? Is it peanut butter? Is it a
Right.
butter? I mean, whatever it is. But
Right.
if you use a brush to sauce your brisket and you sauce it and your rub comes off, you probably didn't wait long enough.
You didn't do something right. You got to let it set.
Right.
Yeah. Well, great questions, man. I tell you what, this has been a lot of good information here. If you really want to know all the details, all the secrets, you can go to barbecuechamps.com, bbqchamps.com. You can scroll down to all of our barbecue pitmasters. Aaron Leslie's class is there. Purvis's class is there. Gosh, I don't want to say everybody. I'm just going to say the two that are here. Aaron's class is there. Lee Hickle's class is there. And soon to be, you heard it just a minute ago, we're going to have Fred Robles on here at some damn point in time. I love that. I like how he plugged us. He's already got his plug going. So, hell, the anticipation. Here's what's going to happen if we put that out. I won't sell a damn class for the next 6 months till Fred's class is released. And then Fred's class will come out and 250 classes will be sold all across the entire United States. So, anyway, there's just so much, guys. I mean, you're trying to get little nitpick here and there. And all that can do, really, I think, is confuse the hell out of you if you don't know how to use all that stuff. When you got a class that you can
simple.
Keep it simple, So,
if it doesn't taste like brisket, the guy in a wheelchair at the local VFW will not grade that brisket worth a dang. Okay, yep. I'm just telling you right now. It depends on where you're cooking at, but if it doesn't taste like brisket, it ain't going to be a good brisket score. Period.
Yeah.
We all like pot roast, though.
Yeah, pot roast briskets, that's for sure. I don't like a pot roast brisket. That ain't for me.
You don't, but the judges do.
That's it.
It ain't what we want. Remember this. I'm telling you what. When I took Fred's class, one of the first things he said, "It isn't what you like, guys. It's what the judges like."
That's
okay.
Right.
Every person's class I've ever taken has always said the same thing. I say the same thing, but it doesn't matter what you like, guys. Just make it taste like brisket.
That's it. Make it taste like a brisket. That's it. People overthink this damn crap. I make mine taste like a brisket. I mean, everybody's like, man, your brisket's got the beefiest, just great flavor to it. It tastes like a brisket, So, let's see what else we got. Let's see. Thanks to Lee Hickle and Larry and Leslie's classes improved my barbecue game a lot. There you go.
Well, and I tell you, Mike, we saw this, 3 weeks ago, that I had 2 of my students had the hat trick the same weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, I have never seen 2 guys on social media ever say they hat trick the same weekend.
Yeah.
And that's an awesome. I've hat tricked. I'm sure Fred's had one. I mean, it's in Lee. I mean, I don't know who all's records or what, but
right.
If you have 2 guys that take the academy and hat trick the same exact weekend, that's pretty awesome.
That's pretty awesome. Let's see, Brian. Brian's asking about chicken. Brian, man, you're behind, brother. Go back about 3 episodes, man. We already did chicken, so
man. And Brian injected with the freaking brisk injection, man.
That's it.
Right.
Mike still does have a good brisket.
Or pork if you're drunk.
That's it.
Doesn't matter.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. So, Aaron got my brisket where it is now. There you go. Well, I tell you what. Speaking of briskets, let's do a trivia real quick. I'm gonna make something real simple. So, give me another name. First person that gets this right, and I'll let Fred. So, give me another name that is often referred to as the point. Give me another name that's often referred to as the point. First person that gets it right is going to get our 20 championship backyard barbecue classes for 1 month. First person that gets it right, Fatty. That's not. We're looking. There we go. The decal. So it's often referred to as the decal. And the first time I heard that, I had just started cooking. I don't remember where it was. I was watching something, and I had always known it as the point. And then they kept talking about the decal, and I was like, decal. What the hell's the decal? I was like, oh, he was talking about the point. I always thought it was point, but let's let our butcher talk about this. Fred, I mean, is it often referred to in the butcher industry as the point or the decal?
Well, when you order briskets, they often ask decal on or decal off.
Decal on or decal off. There you go. That's cool. All right.
And that's also on our purveyors boxes.
Right.
Or if you go to HEB, I can't tell you about Walmart. I never have looked at a brisket in Walmart in like 10 years. But if you go there, it'll say decal on, decal off.
Yep.
And that's because they cut that little chunk of fat off.
Right. All right, Mr. John J.J. Jensen. I don't know if you bought classes from me. It was just getting too dadgum hard to remember everybody now. If you have not bought any classes from us, or if you have bought classes from us, you need to let me know. What I need you to do, John, I just dropped our email address into the chat, bbqchampions@gmail.com. Okay, he says yes, he has. All right, so John, what I need you to do is email me your username, and that way I'll be able to find you, and give me your name, your first and last name that it's under as well. So your username and your first and last name, and I will add our 20 championship backyard barbecue classes to your account. You'll have them for 30 days. Some absolutely amazing recipes are in there, including Mr. Lee Hickle. He did some amazing stuff. He cooked some awesome prime rib, boink balls. I mean, we had some good stuff. It was amazing, and all the stuff is there. So shoot me over that email, John, and I'll get the classes added probably sometime tomorrow. Man, guys, this has been a great podcast. Thank y'all so much. We've run over a little bit longer than normal, but we had a lot of good questions. Fred, thank you, man. You two down at the bottom are freaking brisket gurus. Let's face it. Yeah, amazing. So, Fred, if you want to plug your stuff a little bit, Fred, let's talk about some of your rubs. If you got them handy, we can see them.
Man, I don't have them on me.
Okay.
But
let's talk about
Blanco and Perfecto, which is what's on that brisket.
The original Blanco.
The original.
The OG.
No,
the Rio.
OG. The real OG.
The Rio. The RIO Blanco.
The Rio Blanco. Oh, you got any sponsors you want to thank?
Not the one that Traeger Boy has. Yeah. The original Blanco.
Knockoffs are never what they should be. Got any sponsors you want to thank, Fred?
Now, of course, we're talking brisket, man. And if I'm thinking brisket or beef, I'm thinking Midland Meat Company. So, hats off to John over there. Those guys are doing it right, man. Aaron is over there in that area, and he works with John pretty much on a daily basis, so he knows what I'm talking about. If you guys have never had a piece of meat from Midland Meat Company, man, you're really missing out. These briskets that man had produced perfect score at the Royal last year, and first place brisket at San Antonio Rodeo this year in January. They came out of Midland Meat Company. So man, it's good stuff. Again, don't show up to a gunfight with a knife, right? You want a good piece of meat. So Midland Meat will get you there. So big shout out to those guys. Midland Meat Company, of course. Big Papa Smokers is another sponsor. Texas Original, Charcoal. Who else? Man, I'm always bad about remembering sponsors, but Rio Valley Meat.
There you go, Rio Valley.
Yeah, but man, go check out our rubs, man. I know Aaron's got a full line of rubs. We got two out, Blanco and Perfecto. If you haven't checked those out, we really appreciate the support. They're two awesome tasting rubs that you guys need to try out.
There you go. Aaron, well, let's just say Texas Soil Dust. I got the whole lineup back here. So,
well, I appreciate that, but I will to answer Fred to conclude what Fred said. Say, we were in Odessa a couple of years ago. He in 2 days in double header, he wins, and he says, "Aaron, I'm going to use Blanco and Perfecto. That's all I'm going to season all four meats with, and I'm going to cook on drums because we talked him into cooking. Kicked our ass again." Right? I'm not telling you anything. I've watched him. Fred can tell you. I was in his trailer. He's seasoned all four meats with the same two rubs cooked on drums. So Fred has a great line of stuff.
Wow.
I will say this, man. Midland Meat Company. Not only is he a good friend, I worked for John Scarborough at Midland Meat Company at the Half Acre, the barbecue restaurant. I'm in Midland Meat Company all the time. He is also my business partner. So I can't tell you enough about Midland Meat Company and what they do. Fred made a comment about San Antonio Rodeo. Not only is San Antonio Rodeo the last three first place briskets, 21, 22, 23, and 24 are all first place Midland Meat Company briskets. And the last 5 first place ribeyes are Midland Meat Company. So I'm going to say that John has a cattle program and a heritage program that he's building a legacy. It's great beef. So if you ever want to get there, but guys, I mean, be easy and don't bitch about how big the brisket was and how thick it was. Just cook the meat, because a cook can make anything work.
That's right.
Okay, so you guys go easy on, because I mean it's just two. There's two briskets per cow. They have to sell the whole cow. So you guys are very strict. But I just want to say that Midland Meat Company, hands down, Texas Oil Dust, Backmaster, a part of Backmaster program. We had the vacuum sealers and stuff, and I use 3 of them all the time. And then, and I think with Barbecue Champs Academy, you have a very good logistics to go anywhere you want to do. Press play, rewind, fast forward, press play, rewind, fast forward again. You can watch it anytime you want to, and you can see what's going on. So, those are my 4 big plugs. There's other guys out there, but those are the 4 that I use every weekend, every week, and I'm going to stick with those guys.
There you go. Well,
Blues Hog. I forgot to mention Blues Hog. My
Blues
bad.
Hog. There you go.
Tim and those guys. I don't think there is a cook in Texas that, if you're not using a Blues Hog product, I don't know what it would be, but anything with Blues Hog on it, I don't think you're, I think you're out of date.
I would say this: it's probably on the first place and the last place of every cook-off.
Probably so.
I posted a video just yesterday, I think, about their new garlic Parmesan wing sauce. I tried it in Memphis in May. Man, I'm a fan of garlic and Parmesan. It's a buffalo garlic Parmesan.
Wow.
And that stuff it's still not out yet, but it's really, really good. So
I watched this video. I was like, a little slow motion drizzle on a piece. Beef, right? Was it a beef that you put it on?
Man, they had sausage. They didn't even have wings. Okay. They were cooking wings, but they didn't have them done yet. They had some sausage done. And Tim tells me, try that wing sauce. And this piece of sausage. It was legit, man. It's good stuff.
Wow. That's awesome.
It's all about the taste buds.
Like you, Lee, for joining us once again. I think we had a lot of good information here, man. So,
Lee, who do you want to plug, Lee? Come on now.
Yeah, come on.
Hey, Barbecue Champs / Lee Hickle, of course. No, Cosmo, B&B Charcoal, Western Wood, Duraflame, Jack Daniels. Hey, just that's weekend, Willingham barbecue. Good stuff up there.
The new Tribal Grill. The
new Primal Girls, Primal Girls USA, right? So I'm ambassador for those guys with Harry Sue and Don Falconberry. It'll be it's in delayed right now, but it'll be released next month. PrimalGirlsUSA.com. Check it out. They'll be released in June all over. So great video, great content.
Yeah. If anybody knows anybody from Jim Beam, tell them that I'm a pretty avid user of this stuff. Me and my buddy Scooter, old Paul Whitaker, we drink a lot of this, and we would love to have somebody from Jim Beam reach out to us.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, just to give you an idea on these Primal Girls, last weekend before Memphis in May, Jack Daniels reached out to me and asked me if I can feed 5,000 people at the Luke Holmes concert at the Alamo Dome, front and center. So I put together my team, and we cooked tri-tip, pork butt, and chicken on the Primal Girls. We ended up feeding 4,200 people in 2.5 hours using those Primal Girls. The 4 sides are fully insulated, and you can adjust the racks, of course. But we murdered it, man. We had a team of 12, and we cooked 4,200 people.
Wow.
In 2.5 hours. So they cooked good. It's a lot of work. So thank you, Jack Daniels, for reaching out to me to have me showcase these Primal Girls and feed Luke Holmes and his group and guests.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Well, I do want to say that thank you to Jamie Gear for building a great pit, and I enjoy using it every day and every weekend. So I want to appreciate him. He's an old school technique, and he's got it's still tried and true today.
That's it.
Oh yeah, and Memphis in May, we cooked the turkey on the pit maker, and we got a perfect first place turkey cooking on the pit maker.
Yeah, and pit makers are sweet as well, no doubt. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate y'all giving up a little of your time tonight to talk some questions. We've been talking so far chicken. We've talked about ribs. We've talked about brisket. We're going to be talking about pork butt. We're going to be talking about rubs and injections. We will go into further details. These are just some of the things we're hitting the meats first. I'll probably have Aaron back on because he's got a whole array of rubs. I may have to get Fred back on just because he's got 2 rubs that you can put on all 4 meats and kick everybody's butt with.
He did.
So,
And
you
I'm gonna
know,
tell you
he'll
what,
be able to plug his
it was
stuff in about 30 seconds. Put this on,
felt it
go
for
get the
like
trophy. Case
3
might
days,
drop.
man. I felt it for 3 days. He just like, we talked him into it. I mean, I kid you not, he borrowed some drums. He's like, yeah, I'll do it on this right here. And then he goes and wins it again. I'm like, obviously.
Yeah,
That's it. That's
just
crazy.
to give you a little backstory on that, I know we're running a little
That's fine.
late on time, but it was a double in Odessa, right, Aaron?
Odessa, Texas.
Yeah, it was a doubleheader, CBA doubleheader. We had just started CBA, so man, to me, I didn't want to. I won the first day. I didn't want to cook the second day. I'm the president of CBA. I just thought the optics were, it didn't look good, right?
Right.
So I didn't want anybody saying anything or talking smack or anything like that. So I told the guys, you know, I'm just not going to cook. Long story short, I end up calling Phil. Phil's cooking at another contest in San Antonio. I said, hey, bro, if you want to come cook Odessa, I said, just drive up here. I've got meats. You can cook on my trailer. You can cook on the jumbo. So, man, he takes off. And I give him everything that I have. I said, man, have at it. My trailer's there. He shows up, I don't know, 8 o'clock at night. And then these guys are like, Fred, you need to cook. You got to cook. I said, man, no, I don't have meats. I don't have a pit. I don't have a trailer. I don't have nothing. And then all of a sudden, somebody pulls out a pork butt, and another person pulls out a chicken. And I think we went to HEB, got a choice
But
brisket.
it wasn't like 2 guys. There was like 10 of us around the trailer.
Yeah.
We were like, look, Fred, you're stupid not to cook. We know that you beat all of us. There's a lot of good cooks here. It's not like, I mean, it was me, Phil, Bill. I mean, it was Paul. I mean, all these guys were cooking. Robert Rocha, everybody was there. Everybody seen it. We were like, no, Fred, you're not getting off that easy.
So yeah, they get me all the meats. I go to HEB, buy a choice brisket, and then Manuel says, I've got an extra drum, and then somebody else had another drum. I said, oh man, y'all are gonna talk me. So I cooked on 2 drums. I didn't use my trailer. 2 drums and a table, and I said, I'm just gonna throw stuff on the grill, right? I wasn't
right.
I kind of went halfway through my process, but not really. I used 2 rubs and ended up GCing the darn thing again.
I love it. I love it. And that's why we're going to have Fred Robles on Barbecue Champs Academy. So, all right, guys, I appreciate it. It's been a great night. We're going to keep these things rolling. I appreciate y'all so much. Good luck on the rest of y'all's year. And Moneymaker, that's it. So thank y'all so much. Thanks for all of our listeners tonight. We've had quite a few folks on here. We do really appreciate you going back and watching these things. We love our views. We had almost 2,000 views last week. We're going to keep bringing a lot of great information, and at times we're going to still bring in grand champions and stuff like that. We're just kind of mixing it up a little bit where it's just not, just grand champions all the time. We're really trying to we're an educational company. That's what we are, Barbecue Champs Academy. So we are trying to really bring, I ain't going to try to get, I don't want their recipe, just some tips, some things. Nobody wants to just give you everything that they've done for free. Sorry, like Aaron said, Lee said, if you want the exact stuff, there's classes that'll show you. I guarantee you it's going to get you paid. So in the process, though, we can give you some pointers, some tips, some little odd and end things, and that's why we're doing them. I hope everybody's enjoyed it. Guys, y'all have a great night. We appreciate y'all being here. And to all our listeners, Lord willing, we'll be back next Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. Y'all enjoy. Have a safe and happy Memorial Day. Remember the cause. Have a good time out there, but be safe. And as we always say, have a lot of fun and smoke on.
Audio.